And welcome back to GenDragon42. I have made some adjustments to the lighting. Hopefully I'm not going to be so ghosted out, and hopefully no cats will be providing mood lighting this time by walking in front of my light sources. So, this time I would like to actually address a comment that was sent to me by a viewer through Personality Cafe, and I actually have not been on Personality Cafe very often lately, partially because I just really have time to keep up my YouTube channel, and that's about it. But I love getting comments, and this wasn't directly a question, but I want to take this opportunity to encourage any of my viewers who have any questions that they would like to see me discuss. Please put the comments in the bottom of the video, because I would really love to answer questions. I love, big believer in Socrates. My favorite part of my job as half a university professor is answering questions. So if you have any, please leave them. This was not a question per se, but Susan left me a comment through Personality Cafe mentioning that she found my rather unique combination of Meyers-Briggs ENTP and Enneagram Type 2 to be a strangely fascinating combination. And I would tend to agree with that. I enjoy being strangely fascinating, you know? But I thought I would take just a couple of minutes in a solo video to talk about how that works for me and the manifestations I see, and why, you know, it's an uncommon combination, but there's nothing inherently mutually exclusive about it, even though it seems so at first glance. So, first of all, for anybody who is new to my channel, because I do get new viewers all the time, just the 30-second explanation of what it means to be an ENTP and a Type 2. An ENTP in Meyers-Briggs typology with Jungian cognitive function analysis means that I am, first of all, extroverted. My mental energy tends to go outward into the world more than inward into my own mind. Intuitive, that is, I see the world with X-ray goggles, the cause and effects beneath the reality that caused reality to be, and sometimes completely oblivious towards those physical realities. Whoops, there was a door jam there. Also thinking, which just means objective in my decision making, and I prefer to be objective in my decision making and belief formation. Although I do also, of course, make subjective choices. When I do, it's because I'm trying to take care of the people I care about. When I make an objective decision, which I usually do, it's because the thing seems logical, completely independent of any other circumstance. And then P means I have no inherent personal reward in my serotonin system for getting to the end of something or completing it. That doesn't make any difference to me. I enjoy experiencing the finished product, but I don't feel a relief that the thing is finished. It's all about process for me. So that's ENTP. And then Enneagram Type 2 is the person often called the helper, who wants to take care of people so that they are seen to be good. And that you might hear a correlation between that and my subjective function. And there is some. But because I don't prefer to use my subjective function, why would my Enneagram type, my core Enneagram type, be one that compulsively feels that they need to offer their services such that people believe that they're good, right? I thought also my preferred judgment function is independent of any other consideration. So why should I care what you think about me? This is seen as a contradiction by some, and certainly it's not statistically common. But there isn't necessarily any contradiction, and I'll just explain how those things are independent of each other, and then how the combination works for me. So first of all, MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, only talks about two things really, and then a third thing on the side. Okay, the two things that it really talks about are the way you take in information about the world around you, and the way you use that information to form beliefs about what you see around you, and to choose what to do, choose what to believe, and choose what to do. And the Enneagram is not about either of those things. The Enneagram is about the experiences that you have had, and how your inherent self has taken those experiences and turned them into driving forces. Your core motivations, not in the sense that, you know, I am really motivated by learning, and that's not surprising given I'm an objective intuitive person, but that's not the type of motivation that the Enneagram's really talking about. They're talking about your deep-seated negative things that you are trying to run from somehow, and the mechanisms that you use to cope with them. Reflexive mechanisms that no one sits down one day and says, I think I'm going to mask my insecurities by making myself good for everybody. That's not, nobody does that. You just do what you do. Nobody knows exactly why. We can point to, you know, messages that you got in your childhood, but why you got that message and your sibling didn't, there's got to be some kind of inherent component to it as well. But who knows what that is. Whereas Myers-Briggs, I believe, is much more than half nature. There may be some nurture in there as well, but I really believe that it's like 90% just how your brain works. You got a flip switch on your genetic code, and that gave you one of the diametrically opposed axes in your cognitive functions. The fact that everything is binary in that system confirms that it's more biological than natural. And I think perhaps the fact that Enneagram is trinary instead of binary, there are 9 types that are arranged in 3 groups of 3, confirms that it is not at all biological, or at least not primarily biological, but it's much more psychosocial than anything else. So putting the two together will give you different flavors of the other, right? So a type 2 ENTP is going to be slightly different than a type 9 ENTP or a type 5 ENTP or whatever. Similarly, an ENTP type 2 Enneagram is going to be different than an ESFJ type 2, right? So you'll see variations when you look at them both together, I think. And since they talk about complementary issues, you can get a more complete image of what's really inside a person's mind, not just brain, mind, if you look at both of them, I think. So that's fine. And then for me, type 2 isn't just about helping people. There's one of the difficulties, and this is a difficulty that I had at first with the Enneagram as well. People look at the type descriptions of an Enneagram, and the first thing that they see, the first thing that I saw, was an explanation of behavior. And that is massively misleading because the types are not about the behaviors that you do. They're about the things that drive you and what they drive you to do. It's not about what you do nearly as much as it is why you do it. And understanding why you do something. And you may have been telling yourself one thing for quite some time. And always disclaimer, I am definitely not telling anybody that they don't know themselves. But I would like to suggest that your first instinct, especially on the Enneagram, but possibly also with Meyers-Briggs, may not be accurate. Not because you're a self-non-acknowledging person, but because things, for all human beings, things are not always what they seem. Food for thought. Anyway, at first I thought I was either type 5 or type 7, and I couldn't figure it out. Those are in the head triad, and I thought, I'm an NT, of course I'm in the head triad. And I do everything, I'm very much in my head. I am very much in my head, but the thing that I had not taken into account, the thing that was not as it seemed, I am very much in my head, but my head feeds my image. I very, very much look for a reflection of myself, my mental, cerebral self, my theoretical self, in the eyes of the other people that I'm interacting with. And there's almost nothing that happens in my head that I don't double check in other people's eyes. That is a reflection of my image triad core type. And so some people call this heart triad. I still reject calling it heart because heart may be involved, but I think that's overstating the case for heart. I think image is much more close to explanation of all of the facts. I think heart was reached because it was convenient. You have head, heart, and gut. Also because most people who identify as image core types are feelers. And so it's easy to see the common thread of feeling that runs through, or subjective decision makers. The subjective thread that runs through most of them. But I feel, like Sherlock Holmes, that this is not the best explanation of the facts. It is an explanation of some of the facts, and that image is the only explanation of all of the facts. I love Sherlock Holmes, for real. Anyway, so my head feeds my image. I had also vastly underestimated the importance of my gut fix, which is 8. Partly because I had been socialized in my family to repress my 8-ness. 8 is the dominant, the angry, lusty, Boudica. Give me an axe and a meat on a stick and I'm happy, kind of thing that I have going on. I was not necessarily encouraged in my upbringing, although I was not required to be ladylike, which is wonderful. It was purely the domineering aspect of my 8-ness, and not the masculine aspect of my 8-ness that was discouraged. Anyhow, so I shifted that. I thought it was 9 instead, and I undervalued the importance of my gut fix because I have very tenuous connections to my sensing functions in Meyers-Briggs or Jungian cognitive functions. I thought, there's so much more inferior to me than my intuition, which totally rules my existence. That must be last. I don't think it is. I definitely believe in the holy idea of knowledge. Knowledge is beautiful, but more than knowledge, understanding. Understanding of truth is an adamantine goddess, and she's gorgeous. Anyway, that's back to my head fix. Those were the mistakes that I made early on, was to not understand what was really going on with my head fix, the dominance of my image in my person, my identity, and to devalue my anger and lust-based gut fix, because I had been taught that that was not completely acceptable. So how does all of that, so granted that I'm actually an image type, why am I not type 3, which is a much more common for NTs statistically? Type 3 is the achiever, and actually I don't feel that I have to do anything to gain approval, right? The type 3 by themselves has this constant feeling like life is somehow telic, when really it's all atelic. This is a concept from linguistics that we can use to be really to explain this very nicely. So telicity is the idea that an action or state has an inherent endpoint. The best example is eating. So you have, if you eat, there is no inherent point in which this has to stop. Even if your stomach gets so full that it's about to burst, you can do the Roman thing, go to a vomitarium, throw up, and start eating again, right? You might pass out, but eventually you can, right? There's no place really that eating has to stop. But once you add a discrete object, eat an apple, there's a very clear point at which the apple is gone and you can no longer eat that apple because it's gone, right? So if you say eating, that is what we call atelic. It does not have an inherent endpoint. But eating an apple is a telic event. Once you finish the apple is gone and you have to stop by default. Okay? That is relevant because I believe the issue for type 3 is they have the feeling, they believe somehow that life and accomplishment and validation are telic. Once they reach that endpoint, then they will achieve all of the validation, the recognition, and the approbation that they crave. But once they have achieved whatever it is that they were doing, they need something else. In reality, this getting of approval is atelic. There is no end. Once you get one thing, you're going to have to do something else, and then you're going to have to do something else. It will never stop. So that is the conundrum for a 3. The conundrum for a 2 is that while they're doing all of these good things for people, the real reason that they're doing it is for themselves, because they want to be believed to be good, believed to be loving. But really they aren't doing it for the other person, they're doing it for themselves, for their own image. And I do resonate with that. It's something that I loathe, actually, about myself. I wish I were capable of doing something without also thinking, like, my inherent narcissism is so high, and this is something that is common to ENTPs. My inherent narcissism is just so bloody rampant, and I can't stop it. I struggled all through my teens and all through my 20s, really seriously trying to stop, to quash, to cut, excuse me, this complete, utter obsession, constant self-centeredness. I'm always thinking about myself. And I don't want to always think about myself. You know? Like, on the one hand, it gets old. On the other hand, it doesn't. Because I'm fascinating or something. But it's not necessarily the person I want to be, but I can't stop. I've figured out how to turn that into things that can be beneficial to others as well. Like the YouTube channel. Hopefully some ENTPs and/or Type 2s out there will realize they're not alone. And in fact, that brings me to exactly the variation. For those who are not as familiar with Enneagram, there's a system called wings. And basically, the types are not discrete blocks. They're continua. So if this is the, sorry, this hand for you, if this is the, yes, 2 block, then you can be over here on the 2 block, you can be in the middle with the 2 block, or you can be close to the 3 block, right? So it transpires that 2 wing 3, which means a 2 that's kind of close to the 3 line, has a more personal and more directly narcissistic understanding of what doing good things for other people means. Okay, so a 2 wing 3 typically believes that being there in person and like, here I am, I will solve all your problems, not by actually doing anything specific necessarily, and not through the standard things. Like the standard things are doing your laundry for you, or cooking you dinner, or all of these things that seem like SJ things to do. And statistically, most Type 2s are, well, many Type 2s are SJs. But all of those practical, physical things are not the things that I do. I am very bad at thinking of those things. And even if I think of them, I'm very bad at actually making them happen, even if I want to do them. What I am great at is showing up, being present, and infecting the atmosphere with happiness, with joy, enthusiasm, and making people feel that they are heard, that they are known, and they are valued, that they're part of a team. And I do that. And I feel that that is the best thing that I have to give. And I enjoy giving it. I enjoy giving it a lot, because not only am I a 2 wing 3, my instinctual variant combination is sexual-social, which means that I value and desire intensity of experience and intimacy, sharing of secrets and a meeting of minds, and secondarily wish to put it out. So I have high energy when I'm in a scenario when I can do this, and my high energy goes out. And the more positive feedback that I get, the more the energy ramps up, and the more we can get on this big feed. Like I can go supernova in a group of my friends where I am being there for them, and I am validating them, and giving them relief from their stress, or talking about something that's interesting to all of us. Especially if it's also interesting to me, because, you know, mental stimulation is also important. If I'm actually flirting, if a guy is present with whom I am actually, in fact, flirting, yeah, things can get even more supernova-ish. Because that it's called sexual. It's not all about sex, but when you add that possibility even subconsciously into the equation, suddenly it ups the ante to 11 out of 10. Yeah. So partially that's how the combination works, by being about metaphysical things instead of physical things. If you read the Type 2 Enneagram descriptor, it sounds for all the world like an ISFJ, but that's that surface level misleading behavior guide not why you're doing it and what it drives you to do. And I haven't even got to the why yet. The thing that drives all of the image triad core types is shame. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind, absolutely no doubt, and my family will tell you, they know, the thing that I cannot handle, the thing that will bring me to my knees, will paralyze me, will knock me down on my butt in a nanosecond, is shame. All of my fear is fear of shame. All of my anger is for shame. So it's almost all of my anger. But there's no question about what, there's shame, fear, shame for image, fear for head, and anger for gut. There's absolutely no contest as to what drives me more. And that is for confirmation that 2 is my core type. Now, there's the whole issue of tri-type, which means I also get a fix in each of the others. And I do have a 5 head fix, so there's that knowledge goddess thing. And I do have an 8 gut fix, which is the lusty dominant thing. And those are things that you typically find in ENTPs, but typically ENTPs, statistically, frequently have them as their core type. The fascinating thing about having a 2 image core type is that 2 is one of the 3 superego types. And I actually have superego, id, and ego in my tri-type. Not everybody works out that way, and I think that's pretty kind of fascinating that it works. It's just that my compulsion, because of my upbringing, and maybe there was some genetic component as well, but for whatever reason, my compulsion to obey my superego demand that I be good is greater than my anger and need to protect my clan, my pack, my whatever, and greater than my anxiety-ridden inner nerd. Now, what they all 3 have in common is a sense of being rejected. And that is also very true of me. And I knew that before I'd ever heard of Enneagram. So what do I try to do instead? I try to be the all-knowing, omnibenevolent ruler, supreme ruler of the multiverse. Yeah. I don't actually try to do that. Only I do, but I don't. It's one of those subconscious, I would love to. One of those things that you can't take seriously, on the other hand, you can't ignore, because these are the tendencies that you actually have. Human beings have tendencies, have horrible tendencies, and they have knee-jerk reactions to terrible forces within themselves that you're not supposed to talk about in polite society. On the other hand, I utterly and completely believe that the unexamined life is unworth living. Socrates said it before Thoreau did. And I refuse to look away if an opportunity for examination offers itself. And honestly, I think that is the best thing that we as a collective group of Homo sapiens can do, is know ourselves and understand that other people are different, and that sometimes we can actually create greater bonds. Sometimes we're just going to have to learn to deal. And that's okay. It's called tolerance, and we can do that too. And it's just easier to do it when we understand these things. Of course, I might be biased because I am an NT. But those are my 2 cents, my half an hour's take on the interesting, unique combination ENTP 2-wing 3 8 5 Enneagram. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them below. Thank you.